Military academies across the galaxy share a universal truth that roughly translates to, if something can go catastrophically wrong during training exercises, it probably will. Today, that truth proved itself with the sort of spectacular accuracy that makes you question whether the universe has a sense of humor or just enjoys watching military personnel suffer. Training facility. Omega-7 housed our most challenging combat simulations, designed to test cadets against the deadliest creatures known to sentient civilization. The facility's crown jewel was a specialized enclosure containing a single Drakmoth pup, designation K-94, though the staff had nicknamed her Princess for reasons that would become painfully apparent. Drakmoth pups represented everything terrifying about apex predators compressed into a deceptively manageable package. Standing 4 feet at the shoulder, weighing roughly 200 pounds of concentrated violence, Princess possessed razor-sharp claws capable of shredding reinforced armor, fangs that could puncture starship hulls, and the sort of predatory intelligence that made seasoned warriors reconsider their career choices. Today's exercise will test your ability to work as a coordinated unit against superior predatory forces, announced drill instructor Korthax Vale, his scarred Zentari features displaying the sort of grim satisfaction that came from watching young beings learn about mortality the hard way. You will enter Princess's domain in teams of 3, attempt to establish tactical superiority, and extract without casualties. The current team consisted of 3 promising cadets from different species, each representing the supposedly finest military traditions of their respective civilizations. Cadet Jax Porin, a muscular Altarian male with the golden skin and 4 arms that made his species natural warriors, carried enough firepower to level a small building. His biomodifications included enhanced reflexes, reinforced skeletal structure, and the sort of overconfidence that military academies spent years trying to beat out of recruits. Cadet Thera Nox, an imposing Corellian female whose cybernetic implants gleamed with technological superiority, approached every challenge like a mathematical equation, waiting for the correct solution. Her species had conquered 3 star systems through superior engineering and tactical analysis, making her certain that any biological threat could be neutralized through proper preparation. And then there was Cadet Zoe Blake, human female, average height, unremarkable build, brown hair currently tied back in what military regulations charitably called a functional ponytail. Her equipment consisted of standard-issue gear without modifications. Her academic scores ranked middle of the class, and her species had only recently achieved interstellar travel. "Cadet Blake!" Instructor Vale called out, his 4 eyes focusing on the human with obvious skepticism. "Your species lacks the physical advantages of your teammates. Are you certain you wish to participate in this exercise?" "Absolutely," Zoe replied with the sort of calm confidence that either came from supreme competence or complete ignorance of the situation's danger. "Should be interesting." Interesting. Right. Like calling a supernova a light show. The 3 cadets entered Princess's domain through reinforced airlocks that sealed behind them with the finality of tomb doors. The habitat had been designed to replicate a natural hunting environment, complete with rocky outcroppings, dense vegetation, and multiple levels that provided both cover and ambush opportunities. Princess herself was nowhere to be seen, which was arguably more terrifying than finding her immediately. Drakmoth pups were ambush predators, capable of remaining motionless for hours before striking with devastating precision. "Standard formation," Jax commanded, his 4 arms adjusting weapons with practiced efficiency. "Nox, you take point with tech sweeps. Blake, you watch our rear. I will maintain center position for maximum fire support." "Understood," Thyra replied, her cybernetic implants already scanning the environment for thermal signatures, movement patterns, and electromagnetic anomalies that might reveal their target's location. "Got it," Zoe said simply, though she was studying the habitat with the sort of quiet attention that suggested she was processing information differently than her teammates. They advanced into the simulated wilderness with textbook precision, weapons ready, sensors active, every movement coordinated according to military doctrine developed over centuries of interspecies warfare. For approximately 30 seconds, everything proceeded exactly as their training had prepared them for. Then Princess made her entrance. The attack came from above, A 200-pound missile of fur, fangs, and fury that dropped from a concealed ledge with the sort of perfect timing that suggested she had been watching and waiting for the optimal moment to strike. Jax, despite his enhanced reflexes and combat modifications, had approximately 0.3 seconds to register the incoming threat before Princess slammed into him with the force of a small asteroid. His weapons scattered across the terrain as razor-sharp claws shredded through his armor like it was decorative fabric. "Contact!" Thyra shouted, her cybernetic systems already calculating firing solutions and tactical responses. "Predator engaged! Porin is down!" She opened fire with precision that would have impressed her instructors, energy bolts finding their target with mathematical accuracy. Unfortunately, Princess possessed the sort of natural armor that made military-grade weapons seem like irritating light shows. The Drakmoth pup pivoted toward the new threat with fluid grace, leaving Jax groaning on the ground with injuries that would require significant medical attention. Thyra's enhanced reflexes allowed her to maintain fire while retreating toward better cover, but Princess closed the distance with the sort of speed that made physics seem like a polite suggestion. "Systems compromised," Thyra reported as Princess's claws found gaps in her cybernetic defenses. "Tactical withdrawal recommended," which was military terminology for run away very, very fast. Both cadets were now either incapacitated or in full retreat, leaving Zoe standing alone in the center of the habitat, while an apex predator evaluated her as either a threat to be eliminated or prey to be consumed. Princess turned her attention to the remaining human, golden eyes reflecting the sort of predatory calculation that had kept her species at the top of the food chain for millions of years. She had just demonstrated her complete superiority over two enhanced beings from advanced military civilizations. One small, unmodified human should pose no challenge whatsoever. That was when Zoe did something that made every observer in the facility question their understanding of human psychology. She stood perfectly still, not frozen with terror, not preparing for fight or flight, just still. Her brown eyes met Princess's golden gaze with calm attention, as if she were studying an interesting puzzle rather than facing imminent dismemberment. "Hello there, beautiful," Zoe said quietly, her voice carrying none of the fear or aggression that Princess had come to expect from intruders in her domain. "You are absolutely magnificent, are you not?" Princess tilted her head slightly, a gesture that in any other predator might have indicated curiosity, but in a Drakmoth pup usually preceded a killing strike. "Look at those eyes," Zoe continued, completely ignoring the fact that she was having a conversation with a creature that had just mauled two enhanced warriors. "Such intelligence. You knew exactly when and how to attack, did you not? Waited for the perfect moment." The apex predator took a step closer, her massive paws silent on the artificial terrain. Her claws remained extended, muscles coiled for another devastating assault. "You are not just strong," Zoe observed, still maintaining that impossibly calm tone. "You are smart. Really smart. I bet you have been watching us for a while, learning our patterns, figuring out our weaknesses." Another step closer. Princess was now within striking distance, close enough that Zoe could see individual whiskers, and the way the predator's nostrils flared as she processed the human's scent. "The thing is," Zoe said, reaching up slowly to adjust her ponytail, "I think you might be bored." Princess stopped moving entirely. 6 months in this facility," Zoe continued, her hands working carefully to retie her hair, "with nothing but training exercises and terrified cadets. That has to get tedious, right? Where is the challenge in that?" The Drakmoth pup's head tilted further, her golden eyes tracking the human's movements with laser focus. But something had changed in her posture, a subtle shift from predatory readiness to something that looked almost like attention. "You want to know what I think?" Zoe asked, finishing with her hair and lowering her hands slowly. "I think you are tired of being treated like a mindless killing machine. I think you want someone to recognize that you are more than just claws and teeth." Princess made a sound that was not quite a growl, not quite a purr, but something entirely new that the facility's audio system struggled to classify. "That is it not?" Zoe said with growing excitement. You are not just a predator, you are an individual. You have thoughts, preferences, personality, but everyone who comes in here just sees you as a threat to be neutralized. The observation deck had gone completely silent. Instructor Vale's scarred features reflected the sort of confusion that came from watching established military doctrine get turned inside out by a single conversation. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Kane Frost, the facility's lead xenobiologist. "Drakmoth pups do not engage in social interaction. They are purely predatory beings driven by hunting instincts." "Tell that to Princess," I muttered, watching the unprecedented scene unfold below. Zoe took a careful step forward, her movement slow and deliberate. "What do you say we try something different? Instead of this being a combat exercise, what if it was just a conversation?" Princess remained motionless, her golden eyes fixed on the human with an intensity that suggested she was processing concepts that had never been offered to her before. "I know you could kill me," Zoe said matter-of-factly. "You are stronger, faster, better armed. But you are also choosing not to. That tells me everything I need to know about your actual nature." The Drakmoth pup took a step backward, creating more space between herself and the human. It was a gesture that could have been interpreted as retreat, except that her posture suggested consideration rather than withdrawal. "You want to know what humans are really good at?" Zoe asked, settling into a cross-legged position on the ground that placed her in a completely vulnerable position. "We are good at recognizing intelligence in others, even when that intelligence does not look like our own." Princess lowered herself to her belly, bringing her massive head closer to Zoe's level. Her claws retracted, her muscles relaxed, and her breathing shifted from the rapid pattern of a predator to something calmer. "That is right," Zoe said softly. "You are not just a weapon or a training tool. You are someone who deserves respect and recognition." The apex predator made that strange sound again, and this time the audio systems managed a translation. Acknowledgement/curiosity/social interest. "Sweet spiraling stars," Dr. Frost breathed. "She is communicating." "Not communicating," Zoe corrected, apparently able to hear the observation deck's commentary through her comm system. "She has been trying to communicate all along. You just were not listening." Princess vocalized again, a longer sequence that the translation systems processed as isolation unpleasant, desire for understanding, appreciation, for recognition of individuality. "She has been lonely," Zoe interpreted, her voice carrying a mixture of sadness and anger. 6 months of isolation, being treated like a monster, with no one recognizing that she is a sentient being with emotional needs. "Drakmoth pups are not classified as sentient," Dr. Frost protested. "They lack the cognitive complexity for advanced emotional states." "Doctor," Zoe said with the sort of polite patience that preceded academic demolition, "with all due respect, your classification system might need some revision." Princess had moved closer now, her massive head only a few feet from Zoe's position. Up close, the predator's eyes reflected not the cold calculation of a killer, but the warm intelligence of someone who had finally found a being willing to see her as more than a threat. "What would you like to do?" Zoe asked. "We have some time left in this exercise. We could make it count for something more than just combat training." Princess's response was complex, involving multiple vocalizations and body language that suggested she was expressing ideas the translation systems had never been designed to process. "She wants to show me something," Zoe interpreted. "Something about her environment, about how she perceives this space." "Cadet Blake," Instructor Vale's voice carried clearly through the communication system. "You are supposed to be conducting a tactical exercise, not engaging in xenobiological research." "Instructor," Zoe replied, rising to her feet as Princess stood as well. "I am conducting the most successful tactical exercise in this facility's history. I have achieved complete mission success without firing a single shot or sustaining any casualties." "Mission success?" Vale repeated. "Your teammates are incapacitated." "My teammates failed to recognize that this was never a combat situation," Zoe corrected. "Princess is not an enemy to be defeated. She is an intelligent being who has been treated like a monster for 6 months. The real tactical challenge was recognizing that fact. Princess began moving toward a section of the habitat that had never been accessed during previous exercises, her movements indicating that she wanted Zoe to follow. The human complied without hesitation, walking beside the apex predator, like they were old friends, rather than predator and prey. "Unbelievable," muttered Medical Officer Nix Kane, as her teams attended to the injured cadets. A human just achieved peaceful contact with one of the most dangerous predators in known space. "Not achieved," I observed, watching Zoe and Princess explore the habitat together. "Recognized." There is a difference. As I watched the unprecedented partnership between human and apex predator, I began to understand why Zoe's species had managed to establish themselves in the galactic community, despite their obvious physical limitations. They possess something that enhanced beings and advanced civilizations often overlooked: the ability to see individuals rather than classifications, personalities rather than categories, potential rather than just obvious characteristics. And sometimes that perspective made all the difference between success and failure, between connection and conflict, between understanding and destruction. Princess led Zoe deeper into her domain, sharing secrets about her environment that she had never revealed to anyone else, while the human listened with the sort of respectful attention that transformed a combat exercise into something approaching friendship. It was the most remarkable tactical victory I had ever witnessed, achieved through methods that no military academy had ever taught. The section of habitat Princess led Zoe to had been off-limits to previous exercises for structural reasons, though watching them navigate the space together made it clear that the restrictions had nothing to do with safety and everything to do with administrative ignorance. "This is where you actually live, is it not?" Zoe asked, as Princess guided her toward a carefully arranged area, featuring comfortable resting spots, collections of interesting objects, and what could only be described as artistic arrangements of stones and vegetation. Princess vocalized affirmatively, her tone carrying pride in her personal space that the translation systems interpreted as personal territory / creative expression / private sanctuary. "You decorated it yourself," Zoe observed, with obvious delight. "This is not random environmental design. You arranged everything according to your own aesthetic preferences." Instructor Vale's voice crackled through the communication system with the sort of strained patience that came from watching carefully planned exercises spiral into completely uncharted territory. "Cadet Blake, the exercise timer indicates you have 15 minutes remaining. Please complete your tactical objectives." "What tactical objectives?" Zoe replied, settling down to examine Princess's artistic arrangements more closely. "I have successfully neutralized the apex predator threat through diplomatic means. Mission accomplished." "You have not neutralized anything," Vale protested. "You have engaged in unauthorized fraternization with a dangerous creature." "Dangerous creature?" Princess's vocalization carried clear offense, translated as insult acknowledged, incorrect classification, demand for respectful designation. "She takes exception to being called a creature," Zoe informed the observation deck with obvious amusement. "And frankly, I agree with her. The term lacks appropriate respect for an individual of her obvious intelligence and sensitivity." "Sensitivity?" Dr. Frost sputtered over the intercom. "Drakmoth pups are apex predators. They do not possess emotional sensitivity." "Doctor," Zoe said while Princess arranged herself comfortably beside the human, "I am sitting next to a being who just demonstrated artistic creativity, personal pride in her living space, emotional responses to perceived insults, and clear preferences for social interaction over violence. If that does not qualify as emotional sensitivity, then your definition needs serious recalibration." The medical teams had finally managed to extract the injured cadets from the habitat, though both Jax and Thera required significant attention for their wounds. As they were carried past the observation windows, Princess tracked their movement with what appeared to be concern rather than satisfaction. "She feels bad about hurting them," Zoe interpreted, noticing the predator's expression. "You did not want to cause serious harm, did you? You just wanted them to stop treating you like a target practice dummy." Princess's response was lengthy and complex. defensive action necessary, regret for injury, caused, desire for nonviolent interaction, frustration with aggressive approaches. She was defending herself, Zoe explained to the increasingly bewildered observation team. When beings enter your space with weapons drawn and hostile intent, you respond accordingly. But she would prefer peaceful contact if given the option. "This is impossible," Commander Nex Thorne, the facility's ranking officer, announced as he arrived at the observation deck. The scarred Altarian's 4 eyes reflected the sort of panic that came from watching established military doctrine get completely redefined by a single training exercise. Apex predators do not engage in complex social reasoning. Apparently this one does, I pointed out, though I was struggling to process the implications myself. The question is whether she is unique, or whether we have been catastrophically wrong about her entire species. Princess had begun showing Zoe various objects she had collected, each item carefully selected and preserved for reasons that suggested personal attachment, rather than random hoarding behavior. "Oh, this is beautiful," Zoe said, examining what appeared to be a crystallized mineral formation that Princess had positioned to catch and refract the habitat's artificial sunlight. "You like how the light plays through it, do you not? It creates those lovely patterns on the wall. Aesthetic appreciation, pleasure in visual beauty, understanding of light manipulation," Princess confirmed, her vocalization carrying what could only be described as artistic pride. "Sweet nebulae," whispered Dr. Frost. "She has developed an appreciation for beauty. Aesthetic sense is considered a hallmark of advanced intelligence." "Doctor," Zoe called out, "what would happen if you redesigned your research approach to treat Princess as an intelligent individual rather than a biological specimen?" "That would require completely revising our methodology," Frost replied. "Ethical review boards, consent protocols, collaborative research frameworks." "Sounds like a good start," Zoe said simply. Princess vocalized something that the translation system struggled with before settling on. "Request for continued social contact / interest in. Learning about human culture / offer of reciprocal knowledge sharing." "She wants to keep talking," Zoe interpreted, "and she is offering to teach us about her own culture and experiences." That sounds like the foundation for genuine scientific collaboration to me. Commander Thorne consulted his chronometer with obvious reluctance. "Cadet Blake, the exercise period has concluded. You need to exit the habitat for debriefing and medical evaluation." "Medical evaluation?" Zoe asked. "I have not been injured." "Psychological evaluation," Thorne clarified, "to determine whether extended contact with an apex predator has affected your mental stability." Princess's response to this suggestion was immediate and unmistakably negative. Protective instincts activated opposition to separation human companion requires no medical intervention. "She does not want me to leave," Zoe said, though her tone suggested she had expected this development. "And honestly, I am not eager to leave either. This is the most interesting conversation I have had since arriving at the academy." "Cadet, you cannot remain in the habitat indefinitely," Thorne protested. "There are regulations, safety protocols, administrative procedures." "Commander," Zoe interrupted, "what if those regulations are based on incomplete information? What if the safety protocols are actually creating more danger by preventing meaningful contact? What if the administrative procedures are standing in the way of revolutionary scientific advancement?" Princess had moved closer to Zoe, positioning herself between the human and the habitat exit, in a gesture that clearly indicated protective intent. "She is not going to let me leave," Zoe observed with obvious satisfaction. "And frankly, I am not inclined to argue with her." "This is a hostage situation," Medical Officer Kane declared over the intercom. "The predator is preventing the cadet from leaving through threat of violence." "Actually," Zoe corrected, "this is a friendship situation. Princess is offering me sanctuary because she recognizes that leaving might mean the end of our communication. She is not threatening me. She is protecting me from people who want to separate us." Princess vocalized agreement. Correct assessment, protective intentions, opposition to forced separation. The observation deck had descended into the sort of chaos that military facilities experienced when established procedures proved completely inadequate for current circumstances. We need extraction protocols, Thorne announced. Sedation systems, containment measures, emergency response teams. Commander, I interjected, my scientific curiosity finally overriding bureaucratic concerns. What if we tried a different approach? What if we asked Princess what she would accept as reasonable terms for Cadet Blake's departure? Asked her? Thorne repeated, as if I had suggested consulting the facility's cleaning systems for tactical advice. She is clearly intelligent enough for negotiation, I pointed out, and she has demonstrated willingness to communicate. Why not treat this as a diplomatic situation rather than a security crisis? Princess's head lifted alertly, apparently having overheard the suggestion through the communication systems. What would make you comfortable with me leaving temporarily? Zoe asked. I understand you do not want this to be our only conversation. Princess's response was detailed and specific. Guarantee of return / regular scheduled contact / recognition of status as intelligent. Individual / improvement of living conditions / social interaction opportunities. She wants assurance that this is not a one-time event, Zoe translated. She wants regular contact, recognition of her intelligence, better living conditions, and opportunities for social interaction. Those sound like reasonable requests to me. Reasonable? Commander Thorne's stress levels were approaching critical thresholds. She is dictating terms for hostage release. She is negotiating terms for voluntary cooperation, Zoe corrected. There is a significant difference, and her requests are entirely reasonable for an intelligent being who has been isolated and mistreated. Dr. Frost had been unusually quiet during the developing crisis, but now his voice carried the sort of excitement that came from witnessing paradigm-shifting discoveries. Commander, if we agree to her terms, we could establish the first formal communication protocol between our species and a Drakmoth. The scientific implications are staggering. The legal implications are equally staggering, Thorne replied. If we recognize her as intelligent, every facility holding Drakmoth specimens becomes subject to sentient rights investigations. Then maybe, Zoe suggested with characteristic human directness, those facilities should be investigated. Princess vocalized support for this suggestion. Agreement concern for isolated individuals' desire for species-wide recognition. She is worried about others like her, Zoe interpreted. She knows there are more Drakmoth individuals in similar situations, and she wants their intelligence recognized too. The implications of this revelation sent shockwaves through the observation team. If Princess was not unique, if her species possessed widespread intelligence that had been systematically ignored. We are looking at the largest xenobiological reclassification in galactic history, I observed. Entire research programs would need restructuring. Military training protocols would require complete revision. Legal frameworks would need updating. And it all started, Zoe said with obvious pride, because someone finally took the time to treat Princess like a person instead of a weapon. Commander Thorne made a decision that would probably haunt his administrative career for years to come. Dr. Frost, initiate emergency protocols for intelligence reclassification. Contact the Galactic Ethics Board and inform them we have a developing sentient rights situation. Medical Officer Kane, prepare facilities for extended observation and interaction sessions. And Cadet Blake? Frost asked. Cadet Blake will continue her current assignment, Thorne said with resignation. Apparently, she has just become our first xenobiological diplomat. Princess's response to this announcement was unmistakably positive. Satisfaction, appreciation for recognition, anticipation of continued partnership. Looks like I have a new job, Zoe said cheerfully. Princess, what should we work on first? Improving your living conditions or establishing communication with others of your species? Princess's answer was immediate. Rescue isolated individuals, expand communication network, establish cooperative relationships. She wants to help others like her, Zoe translated. This is not just about her own situation. She wants to ensure that her entire species receives proper recognition and treatment. The implications of this conversation had attracted attention from the highest levels of Academy command. Within an hour of Zoe's breakthrough, Admiral Kex Vane herself had arrived at the facility. her imposing Zentari form radiating the sort of authority that made seasoned officers reconsider their life choices. "Cadet Blake," the Admiral announced through the communication system, her four arms crossed in a gesture of supreme skepticism. "I have received reports that you have established diplomatic contact with an apex predator. These reports seem unlikely." "Admiral," Zoe replied respectfully. "With permission, I would like Princess to address you directly. She has some important things to say about current military classification systems." Princess lifted her massive head, golden eyes focusing on the observation deck with the sort of attention that suggested she understood the significance of addressing senior military leadership. "Honored Admiral," Princess vocalized, her formal tone surprising everyone present. "I request audience to discuss systematic misclassification of my species and propose cooperative alternatives to current containment protocols." The silence that followed was so complete that the facility's life support systems seemed unnaturally loud. "Did that predator just use formal military protocol?" Admiral Vane asked weakly. "Princess has been observing military procedures for months," Zoe explained. "She understands rank structure, formal communication protocols, and chain of command. She has been learning your culture while you ignored hers." Princess continued her address. "Current isolation methods create psychological distress and prevent beneficial cooperation between species. My individuals possess tactical knowledge, environmental expertise, and problem-solving capabilities that could enhance military effectiveness if properly utilized." "She is offering military partnership," Dr. Frost interpreted, his excitement barely contained. "Not just communication, but actual cooperation based on shared goals and mutual benefit." Admiral Vane's skin had shifted through several colors indicating confusion, amazement, and growing comprehension. "You are suggesting that Drakmoth individuals could serve as military consultants?" "Affirmative," Princess replied. "My species possesses sensory capabilities superior to most technology, strategic thinking adapted for complex environments, and loyalty to those who demonstrate respect and understanding. These qualities align with military objectives when channeled through cooperative frameworks." "This changes everything," Commander Thorne muttered, his stress patterns now reflecting awe rather than panic. "If apex predators can be partners rather than adversaries." "The strategic implications are staggering," Admiral Vane agreed. "But the transition would require complete restructuring of current protocols." Princess vocalized again. "Transition assistance available? Willing to serve as cultural liaison? Other individuals eager to demonstrate cooperative potential?" "She is volunteering to help with the transition," Zoe translated. "She wants to bridge the gap between human understanding and Drakmoth capabilities." "Cadet Blake," Admiral Vane said carefully, "you have achieved something that military strategists considered impossible. How do we proceed from here?" "Simple," Zoe replied with that characteristic human confidence. "We start treating Princess and others like her as equals rather than specimens. We ask what they need instead of assuming what they want. We build relationships instead of maintaining barriers." Princess added her own perspective. "Mutual respect generates superior results compared to dominance. Hierarchies, cooperation achieves objectives. Impossible through coercion, friendship creates stronger bonds than fear." "Friendship," Admiral Vane repeated thoughtfully. "Between humans and apex predators." "Why not?" Zoe asked. "Princess has already proven that she values intelligence, appreciates beauty, desires social connection, and cares about the welfare of others. Those seem like excellent foundations for friendship to me." The massive predator nuzzled gently against Zoe's shoulder, a gesture that conveyed affection and gratitude that needed no translation. "The Academy's training programs will require complete revision," Admiral Vane observed. "Combat exercises will become cooperation workshops. Threat assessment will become partnership evaluation. And Princess will help design the new curricula," Zoe added. "After all, who better to teach us about Drakmoth capabilities than an actual Drakmoth individual?" Princess's enthusiasm for this prospect was evident. Educational collaboration, welcomed, knowledge sharing, beneficial for all participants, eager to contribute to improved understanding. As I watched Zoe and Princess discuss plans for revolutionizing military training, I realized that humans possessed something truly extraordinary. They had the ability to see beyond established categories, to recognize potential where others saw only problems, and to treat beings as individuals regardless of official classifications. And sometimes, that simple recognition was enough to revolutionize everything we thought we knew about intelligence, cooperation, and the possibility of friendship across species barriers. The most remarkable tactical victory in military academy history had been achieved not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple human wisdom of treating others with respect and recognizing their inherent dignity. Princess had found her voice, Zoe had found her calling, and the galaxy was about to discover that intelligence came in far more forms than anyone had ever imagined.